My name is Josh Moore. I'm one of the product marketing managers here at Altium. In case you don't know who Altium is, we started out life in almost 40 years ago as one of the world's first PCB design applications. We're headquartered in San Diego here in Southern California. We've recently merged with Renesas Corporation. That was what, 2-ish years ago? Oh, 2024, we started before that. So we've expanded our presence into the semiconductor space and have started bringing our technologies and their technologies together to form just a bigger electronic product development company and organization, tools, technologies, and whatnot. We serve a wide range of industries from aerospace to automotive, medical, consumer, industrial, semiconductor. And the reason I put this slide up is not so much just to show you who we serve or the wide range of industries that we serve, but to give you a sense that because we serve all these industries, we're seeing a shift and a change in the electronics industry as a whole. The industry itself is evolving. It's more than just printed circuit board design. It is now really driving electronic product development. And that's been a fundamental shift for a lot of our customers because they know us and love us as a PCB tool company, but they need more. They need deeper integration across the broader enterprise. They need integration with other key stakeholders and organizations within the larger product development process and integration with key business systems. Because it's not just, here's a board and we ship it out to the stores, because everything goes in a box, everything has software defined for it, there's procurement involved, there's key stakeholders involved, there's business implications, there's business decisions that all impact everything that happens from a product development level. So we've recognized this, we've reached a point where the industry really needs to pivot, and we're embracing that change and that evolution across the entire industry with what you now see here at the booth, which is what we call platform and solutions. So we are developing a platform first or a platform centric approach to our products, technologies, and our solutions, such that the platform itself is the unifying foundation across all these different individuals, all these different organizations, key stakeholders, and business systems. We're using our proven technologies. Again, we've been doing this for 40 years. We're very good at it. We've made several acquisitions across over the years, Octopart being one of the more recent ones, to bring component information, supplier information, compliance information to the people who are making the component decisions, along with our Altium Designer, which most people know us and love us for, and our 365 collaborative platform, which serves as the foundation for each of the different solutions that we'll talk about. So the 3 platform solutions, just like the 3 pillars here at the show. The first one is Altium Discover, second one is Altium Develop, and then our enterprise solution is Altium Agile. So the importance of the platform, it really serves, from our point of view, as the future of ECAD and electronic hardware development. And I put ECAD up there because electronic hardware development wouldn't fit, but it's really about designing not just the board, but the electronic hardware and the system that goes into the end product, be it a single end product or a system that controls more than just the singular board that this thing controls. So it's really about the products, the systems, and the solutions to provide that level of structure and control and governance that customers need in order to expand out into the broader product development system, the key business systems across different stakeholders, and really just expand the role and the function of ECAD out into the broader company. So when we talk about extending ECAD into the enterprise, it's not just ECAD-MCAD collaboration. That's a part of it, but it's also extending ECAD seamlessly into procurement or into the larger product development process, or compliance operations, or key business systems like PLM, MRP, quality systems, whatever it might be that drives the company, but also drives all those product development processes to get the end product out the door. And then looking forward, it's really about changing our relationship with the industry and our customers to go from tools to systems and solutions for transformation. Because yes, they're still designing a printed circuit board, but a lot of companies are transforming themselves either through digitalization or streamlining processes and integrations across the whole company. So they need something that delivers that transformation and can deliver meaningful business impact. So again, the three solutions: develop, discover, and agile. I'm not going to go into a whole lot other than to say kind of what they are. Discover is really that solution for finding the right products and components for the entire solution. Not just going to Google or DigiKey or Mouser and saying, I need one part, but finding the whole solution. If I'm developing a product, I need a camera module, I don't just draw a schematic for the camera module. There's 100 other components that go along with it. And then there's a power supply, and there might be memory, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's really the solution to help you find that entire ecosystem or that entire circuitry, if you will, not just the one individual component. And then Altium Develop is really aimed at our traditional product development or electronic hardware development, really aimed at bringing individuals together as a unit or a team to say, you're not just working as one, now you're working together, you're collaborating together. And again, based on the platform, we can bring those developers and engineers and layout people together to collaborate. And we call it unleashing the power to create without limits. If you go to the Develop booth, we've recently introduced a whole new pricing structure, capabilities that are really going to change the market and the industry for people who are developing those electronic products. And then lastly, the Altium Agile solution is really aimed at those enterprise level companies who need that broader integration. They need that structure and control in their lives because they've gone from a smaller team environment to now a growing team environment or an evolving team environment where you can't have everybody just doing their thing. You need some level of structure and control over the entire process. And then as you extend out into the broader development enterprise, you need that integration, you need that same level of structure and control. If you're working with vendors and suppliers to bring them in, and how do you maintain access rights? How do you maintain them following the same rules that you're following, be it a compliance rule, be it a production rule, but maintaining that same level of structure and control. So why are we doing all this? And a lot of this is really going to be kind of motherhood and apple pie kind of stuff. We all know that things are getting more complex. We know that the industry is fundamentally changing. There's lots of digitalization initiatives. Supply chain is a mess for just about every company that we talk to. In fact, we were just talking to somebody at the Agile pillar, and we were talking about supply chain. He's like, yep, we just designed in a part 6 weeks ago, and it went obsolete 6 months after we got the product out the door and had to start over. It happens. We all know it happens. Product development as a whole is increasing in sophistication. Regulatory requirements are expanding, and everything within the product development environment at a company must coexist. Electronics can't be isolated, mechanical can't be isolated, software, procurement, pick your favorite discipline or domain. Everybody can't be isolated like they used to be. So our vision, our what we call pivot to the platform, is recognizing the need that customers need a new solution and a new approach to electronics hardware design, not to just keep up, but to evolve and adapt, because the industry will leave them behind if they keep up and stand still. So one of the big things that we see is that this is putting immense pressures on electronic design organizations as a whole. Because if you think about it, and for those that know kind of the history of how mechanical has evolved over time and how software has evolved over time, they've evolved with the kinds of things that we're talking about here, pivoting to a platform. PLM has become integral to mechanical, ALM systems have become integral to software, but ECAD is really kind of this isolated, disconnected, disjointed enterprise or organization that really hasn't kept up, and it's causing a lot of problems given all these complexities that are evolving, the changes that are happening, the just general complexities and sophistication of the industry at large. So what we see with our customers is this impacts them, again, like the guy we were just talking to at the pillar, where without being able to bring all this together, to bring all the stakeholders together, to bring all the domains together, it causes real issues. And the reality of this is, again, should not come as a surprise to anybody. The reality of this is none of this is going away. This is all pervasive. It's all going to continue pretty much forever. Now, at some point, post-pandemic, will we ever get our supply chain issue solved? Maybe, but maybe not. But products aren't getting any simpler. Compliance isn't getting any less. Product development isn't getting any less sophisticated. So these are the engineering realities that our customers are facing. And it really kind of begs the question, and I wrote this a couple of different ways over the last many weeks, is most tools and systems and processes and integrations and whatever it is that customers are using today were designed 10 years ago. Yes, you might have gotten a new revision yesterday, but the fundamental ECAD development process really hasn't changed over the last 10 or 15 years. It's still the same basic schematic design, maybe a PLM integration. It could be better, it could be worse. I mean, it's just, nothing's really changed, and that's kind of the premise that we're taking the approach where we need something better. There's also the business aspect. So forget the engineering realities for a second. We all work for companies. Yes, we produce this, but Logitech is a big company. They have their own initiatives and goals and objectives for the company. Not just the product. The product is a means to an end to make the company more profitable, to make them bigger in the industry, whatever it is. But the executives and the business have their own challenges that ECAD can directly affect. Because if ECAD is still working in isolation and they're the bottleneck and they're the problem, trying to get the product out the door, be on time, be compliant, whatever it is, it's going to impact one of these. And then we've all heard, either in the news or our own experiences, some executive wakes up one morning and says, hey, we're going to digitalize the company. That's an executive mandate that everybody must follow, not just some PCB person who says, I'm going to digitalize. That's usually a corporate mandate that we all have to follow. So there are business impacts that affect all of this as well that we're striving to address with this new approach with our products and solutions. And the question here is really, if ECAD is still stuck in the past, how can it help be the driver for all these corporate initiatives and the executive goals and their ambitions and their objectives? So I'm not going to go through all this. We actually commissioned a report with Forrester a couple of years ago. But what this really boils down to is you could pick any one of those bullets on the last two slides and they all have real financial impacts, be it time to market, lost market opportunity, scheduling delays, budget overruns, component supply chain issues, compliance risk, compliance fines, whatever it is, there's real world implications to any of those risks and any of those challenges that cannot be met. So I wanted to ask this question up front, but I thought this would be a better place for it. Given that electronics is the innovation driver for just about every industry, electronics tends to be the most outdated, the least digitally transformed, the least or poorest integrated of all the domain disciplines. We are just the laggards. And up until, I say recently, in the grand scheme of things, that's not really been a problem. We all talk about it. Hey, you need to be more productive. You need to be more this. You need to be more that. But it's really become an issue with all these business challenges and the realities of developing modern products that no one's been able to solve. So our vision is really, how can we empower and enable our customers and the companies they work for with an evolution of how they develop electronic hardware and how that electronic hardware organization integrates into the broader enterprise, and how it seamlessly connects not just with ECAD, MCAD, or software or procurement, but across the broader enterprise and across the broader company. Because somebody's managing the product at a product level, somebody's managing the business application, somebody's managing potentially inventory with an SAP system or an MRP system or an ERP system. How do we at the ECAD level integrate to that to solve whatever upstream or downstream challenges happen to be involved? So with the Agile solution, again, this one's aimed more at larger organizations that tend to be more digitally mature, that tend to have their electronic product development and their development enterprises on a much larger scale. So our goal is really to connect and integrate all the people, all the processes, all the tools, and all the data to get it wherever it needs to go, to the right person, to the right organization, and be able to interact with ECAD on a level that they haven't been able to interact with before. So some of the key capabilities, and I'm not going to go through each one of these. If you want to know more, I do encourage you to go over to the pillar. But we talk about structure and control. And this could be, and as this slide builds out, you'll see a lot of overlap here. But these are things like workflows and process automation. It's also things like control over rollouts and updates. There are a lot of regulated companies who cannot just install the latest update because it's there. They have to go through all their approval processes. They have to make sure that all the compliant workflows and tools and security systems and everything else work correctly in a sandbox before they roll it out to production. So enterprise itself is not a SaaS product. It is on demand. So we'll produce a new update, but then companies have the freedom and the control to figure out, does this make sense? Did it break anything? And then roll it out accordingly. And then there's design and data management, operational and administrative permissions, secure infrastructure. One of the things that we just recently introduced was support for single tenant architecture, because there's a lot of regulated companies out there where multi-tenant is just not an option. Especially if you do any kind of DoD work or aerospace work, you must have single tenant or you must have on-prem, and it must be air-gapped because government says so. Then there's regulatory requirements, and again, you can kind of see some of the crossover here with data security and access management, compliance, accountability, traceability. There's a huge thing in the regulatory space because you have to document everything, right, wrong, change. Somebody said, do it this way. No, we're going to do it this way, but you're going to document all that. And for most systems, yes, you can get your hands on all that information, but having it streamlined, having it in a place where it's easily accessible. If it's on Fred's laptop and he's on vacation and the auditor comes knocking, he wants to know, are you following all the rules? Did you do something wrong? Well, I got to wait till Fred gets back is not an answer. So having that ability to trace all that information, report on all that information, and streamline that whole process is one of the big keys. Then there's connection and collaboration, and this could be things like supply chain data, access, analytics. We talked about MCAD, ECAD, but also simulation co-design, because you don't just throw it over the wall to somebody who's simulating. You want to be able to communicate, integrate, work in real time, co-design in real time. There's things like vendor suppliers, connectivity with key business systems, and this general collaboration. And then the last one I put up here is risk mitigation. So these are things like, I know I have to have a secure cloud structure. I know that my IT group has to get involved because we might have to have on-site servers somewhere. Well, what's the risk involved in buying up servers and spending capital expenditures on that kind of stuff? And can I be compliant because I have to employ a GovCloud, for example, or a single tenant architecture? Because if I don't, I may not get the contract, but that can induce a level of risk that is unacceptable. So the last one I want to throw in here too is also a quick mention of professional services. So this is something that we've launched a couple of years ago to align with helping our customers achieve their goals and objectives with the new platform and solutions. Because it isn't a situation where it's like, here's the new product, have at it. We want to work closely with our customers to understand how do we configure and customize this solution? How do we train and get people up to speed in a good time to get to value faster than just, here you go, figure it out. Then there's implementation services, and then there's ongoing, what we call enterprise support, that adds a level of personal support to these enterprise solution engagements for customers, so they're not just out there on their own or have to call up tech support. There's really a person who is their point of contact so that issues get fixed faster, they can see the latest roadmap, they can understand the newest functionality, whatever it might be, but a more personal level of engagement for those kinds of customers through our professional services. So who is Agile for? So Agile itself is specifically configured, tailored, optimized to meet the needs of our customers, from those that might be smaller organizations who require speed and flexibility, but again, also that level of structure and control because they're growing. Where they used to be a couple of engineers, they've grown over time, now maybe it's 20 engineers, but everybody can't be using network drive still, everybody can't be doing their own libraries. So there's a need for structure and control as they grow, as they evolve, as opposed to a larger, more digitally mature organization who needs that integration with key business systems, or they need more regulatory compliance support, being able to streamline compliance operations or just be able to track operations. And they need that integration across the broader enterprise, not just throw it over the wall to whoever the next person is. They need that seamless integration across a broader chunk of the company and the product development enterprise. In a nutshell, Agile meets customers where we are. So I put this slide up there. This is not an exhaustive list, but it'll kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about when we say we meet customers where we are, where they are. We try to understand what their needs and requirements are. And it could be structure and control needs, it could be integration across the broader enterprise, data security needs, integration or progression of their digitalization journey, the extent of their regulatory requirements, and the necessity of configuration and customization. We don't expect customers to go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, okay, here we go, and I want that solution. It's really an interaction with the customer to understand where they are, how much of this applies to them, at what level it applies to them, and then help them make the right choice, and then support them in that choice, whichever one they happen to make. So to do that, we have two additions. So if you look at the Agile pillar, on one side is the teams and one side is the enterprise. So this is how we are segmenting that meet you where you are in your needs and your requirements. Teams, again, for those growing companies who need more structure and control in their lives, and the enterprise edition for companies that are more digitally mature, they're larger, could be global, but they need integration across the broader enterprise with key stakeholders and key business systems. The people, the processes, the data, the integration, wherever that integration happens to lead. It needs to be connected, it needs to be adaptable, and it needs to maintain that same level of agility, because we don't want to stifle innovation. We don't want to implement control where people can't get their work done or they feel burdened because they're now controlled. We're going to maintain that same level of agility even with that level of control and structure. So with that, I do encourage you to learn more about what we do and what we offer. We do have eval for the Teams edition. That QR goes there. And with that, if you got any questions,